A valley in the Central Highlands, November 1965. 400 American soldiers are surrounded by 2,000 North Vietnamese regulars. The NVA has been moving through the jungle for 3 days, tightening the perimeter, cutting off every withdrawal route. The Americans have ammunition for a few more hours. Medevac helicopters have been turned back twice by ground fire. Artillery support is hitting danger close. There is no more close. The situation is not survivable by any calculation available to the commanders on the ground. They know it. The NVA commander knows it. He has done this before. He will wait until dark, compress the perimeter, and finish it. Then, something changes in the sound of the air. The AH-64 Apache was not built for this war. It was built for a war against Soviet tank columns crossing the German plain, a war that never came. What it carries instead arrives in this valley in 1965 like a weapon from a different century brought backward in time. 16 Hellfire missiles, each capable of destroying a main battle tank at 8 kilometers. A 30mm chain gun that fires 600 rounds per minute, accurate to ranges the NVA cannot imagine. Forward-looking infrared targeting that sees heat signatures through smoke, through darkness, through the jungle haze that has been hiding the NVA from every other aircraft the Americans have sent. The Apache does not search for the enemy, it finds heat. And 2,000 bodies in a jungle canopy produce heat. The pilot sees the NVA before they hear the aircraft. At 1.5 kilometers, the first Hellfire launches. The math of what follows is not complicated. An NVA regiment moving in open formation in a valley clearing is exactly the target the Apache was designed to destroy. Not infantry, not guerrillas, armor. The helicopter was built to kill things much harder to kill than men in the open. The first missile hits the command element, the cluster of officers and radio operators at the center of the formation. The NVA regiment loses its coordination in the first 4 seconds. What remains is 2,000 men who no longer know what the man next to them is doing or where the threat is coming from. The chain gun finds the tree line where the reserves are massing. 600 rounds per minute means 10 rounds per second, means that the tree line stops being cover and starts being a target. The NVA soldiers who break left find the second Hellfire. The ones who break right find the third. The engagement lasts 11 minutes. The NVA force that had the Americans surrounded pulls back into the tree line, then deeper into the jungle, then off the ridgeline entirely. The Americans in the valley get their medevac. They get their ammunition resupply. They hold the ground. 1 helicopter. 400 men saved. The valley goes quiet. 50 kilometers away, an NVA colonel sits in a tunnel entrance cut into a hillside and listens to the report from his surviving company commanders. He listens for a long time without speaking. He has been fighting since 1946. He fought the French at Dien Bien Phu. He watched the French bring artillery and aircraft and armored vehicles to this country and still lose, because they could not hold the ground between their fortified positions. And the ground between the fortified positions was where the war actually happened. He has outlasted all of it by understanding one principle: technology wins engagements. Patience wins wars. He asks one question: how many of these aircraft does the enemy have? The answer comes back: 1 confirmed, possibly 1. He sits with that for a moment. Then he begins giving orders. Orders go out across the NVA network over the next 72 hours. No more open formations. No movement in daylight in cleared ground. All troop concentrations broken into cells of 10 men or fewer, dispersed under triple canopy jungle where infrared cannot penetrate. Supply columns move only at night, only under the trees. Fighting positions built deep, not wide. Holes in the earth that the Apache's chain gun cannot reach at angle. And one order that will define the next decade of the war: move close to American units. Stay within 300 meters of American positions whenever possible. At 300 meters, the Apache cannot fire without killing the soldiers it came to protect. 1 helicopter cannot be everywhere. The NVA has a country to move through. They will move through the parts the helicopter is not. The Apache wins every battle it can find. The NVA simply stops being findable. 3 weeks after the valley engagement, the pilot flies a 12-hour patrol over 40 kilometers of jungle and finds nothing. No heat signatures in formation, no movement on open ground. The jungle below is as still as it has been for 1,000 years. This is the new problem. The Hellfire missile costs $40,000. The chain gun round costs $30. The helicopter itself costs $30 million to build and $4,000 an hour to fly. The NVA soldier carries an AK-47 that costs $80 and eats rice that costs nothing and needs no fuel and leaves no heat signature when he holds still under a tree. The Apache is a solution to a problem the NVA has stopped presenting. What the NVA presents instead: tunnel networks 40 feet underground, running for hundreds of kilometers beneath the Central Highlands, invisible from the air and immune to anything short of a direct artillery strike on the exact right patch of ground. Village populations that cannot be distinguished from combatants, because many of them are combatants and many of them are not, and the Apache's infrared cannot tell the difference between a farmer and a fighter when both are standing in a rice paddy at dawn. Supply lines running through Laos and Cambodia, outside the boundaries of the war as Washington has defined it. Boundaries the Apache cannot cross without turning a regional conflict into something that involves China. And 1965 is only 12 years after Korea. The Apache controls the sky over South Vietnam. The NVA controls everything that happens on the ground after dark, which is most of what matters. And Washington controls the Apache. Every strike request above a certain threshold requires approval from commanders who are not in the country. The pilot identifies a supply column moving at night through a river valley in the Central Highlands, confirms it as NVA, calls it in. The approval comes back 4 hours later. The column is gone. This happens 11 times in the pilot's first 3 months. The Apache can find the enemy in 4 seconds. The command structure takes 4 hours to authorize the shot. Here is the strategic reality that one helicopter cannot change. The NVA is not trying to win battles. It learned this lesson against the French. A revolutionary army fighting on its own soil does not need to win battles. It needs to outlast the political will of the occupying force. Every month, the war continues without a decisive American victory. The pressure on Washington grows. Every American casualty reported on television is a data point in a calculation that has nothing to do with the valley in the Central Highlands. The NVA commander understands this calculation better than the American commanders do, because he is inside it, and they are trying to manage it from the outside. The Apache can kill a regiment in 11 minutes. It cannot kill the calculation. The pilot knows this, in the way that soldiers know things that commanders prefer not to discuss. He has been here long enough to understand that the war he is fighting from the cockpit and the war being decided in Washington are 2 different wars, running on 2 different timelines toward 2 different conclusions. He wins his war every time he flies. He is watching the other war from 1,100 feet, and he can see what it looks like from up here. It looks like a country that has been fighting foreign armies for 1,000 years and is prepared to fight for 1,000 more. The Apache wins the valley. It wins every engagement it is sent to. In open terrain, against massed formations, against armor and artillery, there is no force in 1965 Vietnam that can stand against it for 11 minutes or 11 seconds. But the NVA stops massing. The NVA goes underground. The NVA moves the war into villages and tunnels, and the political structure of a population that has decided what it wants. And the Apache cannot target a decision. 1 helicopter. Unlimited ammunition. Every battle won. The war ends in 1975. The last Americans leave Saigon by helicopter from a rooftop, not an Apache, a Huey, in the dark, with more people on it than it was built to carry. Technology has never decided a war. It has only ever decided the cost of losing one.